Welcome back, everybody. Yeah. Why do they keep forcing us to eat here? You know, you have to have a break, then you have to eat, then, pretty soon it'll be cake. Okay. All right. So we were at that point where we saw one stream of energy coming into the knowledge petals of the egoic lotus. Another stream emanates from the second tier of petals when in activity. And of course, there are times when that tier of petals is not in activity. The second tier is peculiarly instinctive with the life and quality of the Manasaputra in manifestation. What does that mean? Who and what is the Manasaputra? A Manasaputra is a Manasaputra is a mind-born son, right? It's the solar angel in this case. And the divine Manasaputras, are something we know by a different name, divine Manasaputras. I think I think the divine Manasaputras are the planetary logi. Just like there are planetary Kumaras and there are intra-planetary Kumaras. So we have one stream of energy emanating from, the first stream emanates from the lower triad of permanent atoms via that one of the three petals called the knowledge petal of the outer tier. Knowledge, 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 love, knowledge, sacrifice. So if you want to discover what ray a person's on, the best way is to look at the second tier of petals. However, that particular method may be denied to us for yet a little while. So we have other means of attempting this. Okay. So the second tier of petals in any egoic lotus is the one that gives us the key to the nature of the solar angel. Just as the outer tier is to the inner vision of the adept, because it has to be that way, a clue to the point in evolution of the personality. So by looking at the egoic lotus, the seer can tell the nature of, and we'll get into that now. So the outer tier of petals is particularly connected with the elemental life. The personality is an elemental, right? It's a fourfold elemental. So the outer tier of petals is lunar in a certain respect. The middle tier of petals is solar. So by looking at the egoic lotus, the seer can tell the nature of the personal self through the condition. What is it? Okay, would it be the auric colors? Would it be the... Okay, well, I think that we're going to see the degree of unfoldment of the petals themselves and the degree to which they are demonstrating color and what type of color they are demonstrating. All of this is the key to the unfoldment of the personality or of the ego itself. So would they demonstrate as auric colors? To a degree they would, but there's something much more fundamental about it. And the colors within the egoic lotus are far more fundamental than the colors that manifest in the lower aura. Those are just expressions of what is happening within the inner egoic lotus. Of course, those colors in the aura are somewhat affected by the karmic situation of the individual and by circumstance. So they are not a completely faithful expression of what is in the causal body, because they are conditioned by outer factors, whereas the colors in the causal body are not. They are what they are. Okay, we will see whether I have a voice by the end of the day. Sorry. What is this horrible tea? Horsetail tea? Something like that? Is that good? Is that good? I figured perhaps the horse's tail, you know, you soak the horse's tail in there a little bit and... Okay. So what's really interesting, you know, the master doesn't have to give someone the PIP, the PIP, to tell what their rays are. The master simply looks at you, and especially at the egoic lotus, and the seer can tell, in this case, the seer being the master, the nature of the personal self through the condition of the atomic triangle and the outer tier of petals. Because in a way, if you look at it, the physical, emotional, and mental body are represented by the first three petals respectively. And the integrated personality is represented in a way by all those three taken together and unified as a circle of petals. That is the integrated personality. In a way as well, the fourth petal probably has a good deal to do with the integrated personality, but the fourth petal is in the second circle of petals, correct? The fourth petal here is in the second circle. But in a way, petal 1, 2, and 3, when integrated as a unit, is like the entire personality. So when you look at the egoic lotus, the condition of the atomic triangle and the condition of the outer tier of petals tells you something about the personality. What do you think would be found in the condition of the personality, of the atomic triangle? What would the seer be looking for when looking at the atomic triangle? What do you think? Because what do you have there? You have three units, don't you? Two permanent atoms and one metal unit. What would they be looking for? Well, first of all, it's a question of the activation, isn't it? How bright? How radiant? Which point is on top, as it were, in this triangle? Because there's a rotation in the triangle. So Lemurian man, in a way, has the physical permanent atom on top. Atlantean man has the astral permanent atom, and Aryan man has the mental unit on top. I forget how he calls it, but the triangle rotates. The different vertices of the triangle change positions depending on what stage of evolution you are finding yourself. Technically, it's in here, but I don't want to go looking for that right now. Now, the seer can also tell the nature of the higher self through the color and arrangement of the central tier of petals. Color. Matter of fact, we're told that there is a general hue in the causal body, and it will be the hue of the nature of your soul ray. So even though all of these particular colors are specific for each petal, they are generic in that respect. There is a general overall color for the egoic lotus It seems to be pervaded by this color, and it will be the color of the soul ray that you have. And this is especially revealed in the study of the second circle of petals. Why study all this stuff when we cannot see it clearly? But, of course, the day will come when we can, and then we'll know what we're looking at, right? We will have built the structure of knowledge to interpret what we see. In the same way, why does he bother having you study the rules of white magic? Why bother? He says, when I can give you the actual magical formulas, then your study of the details of the laws and rules will make it much faster for you to apprehend all of the things I give you. So we're building a foundation. That's what we're doing. Yes. Yes, Anne. Well, he's now in this case, what is the tier of petals? Because right now what we're doing, we're taking circles of petals one by one, and we're seeing what influences them. They are influenced from below, they are influenced from above. So we're step by step seeing what the influences are. Do the chakras per se influence the petals? Well, it seems to me that the chakras are the result of a downflow from the ego itself. So I think it's more interior factors that influence the unfoldment of the petals. Let me think about that. Because the chakras, the appearance of the chakras are very much in a way an effect of what is going on in the ego and the monad. The monad is where the chakras originate. That flow goes into the ego and it continues into the vehicles, which demonstrate as chakras. So according to the condition of the ego on its own plane, so will be the unfoldment of the chakras. So what is the cause and what is the effect? Now this is interesting. The color of the central tier, the general color, because the other colors are, as it were, they're already arranged. And the arrangement of the central tier of petals, this word arrangement looks very interesting to me. I'm not quite sure what he means. But we do know that for people on different the degree of unfoldment, maybe the degree of unfoldment, but not an order per se. Or would it be also the prominence of a particular petal? Possibly. And the word arrangement is interesting in this case because you would normally think, well, there's 3 petals, how can they be arranged differently? Yeah. You can arrange 3 petals very differently. Okay, and the question is, are they in order? Do they stay in a certain order? That's the question. Anyway, he gives this to us, and we can think of the possibilities. This tier gives the family of the solar angel, either sort of, I suppose the ray family from that perspective. Interesting. There are physical families, yes, emotional families, mental families, and apparently solar angelic families. So this is a solar angel. Let's see, ray family. This tier gives the ray family, the family of the solar angel, through the arrangement of the atomic lives, which form the petals. The arrangement of the atomic lives. So there's some sort of sacred geometry going on here in the atomic lives. Certain figures may well appear. And the circulation of the streams of force in those petals, what geometry they make, what patterns they make while circulating. Very interesting. We're talking about things that we are not observing directly. But this certainly does heighten the incentive to find the way to purify and refine oneself to the point that one can observe these things. So let's just say, what is the geometry of circulation? This will reveal the family and the ray of the solar angel. Now, you know, what is the ray of the soul? As I have often said, the ray of the soul is really the ray of the spiritual triad. Because the causal body is built on the monastic permanent atom, which has a particular ray. And according to that ray, so the causal body will be built in a way to express that ray. And what I'm beginning to think here is that the solar angels are called in according to the ray of monastic permanent atom. The ray of the monastic permanent atom is the same as the ray of the Buddhic permanent atom and the Atmic permanent atom. They all have the same ray, and that ray is the soul ray. So in a way, the soul ray exists before the solar angel is called in. You see what I'm saying here? That the spiritual triad has two rays. One comes from the monad. It is what it is, and it stays the same. The other is a secondary ray, and on that ray, the soul ray is determined by that ray. I'll show you what I mean. We go here to Cosmic Fire Book. Page 177. Oop. That's the wrong book. Okay, try again. Here is the ninefold choice of rays in the spiritual triad. The first column is determined by the monad. You've got a first ray, second ray, or third ray monad. Therefore, it will be Atmic, Buddhic, or monastic accordingly. The first column. But the second column varies. And just the way the soul ray can change, so this second column can change. Like if you're a second ray monad, you're going to be Buddhic forever. But at different times, you could be Buddhic monastic, Buddhic Buddhic, or Buddhic Atmic. So this ray of the triad pre-exists the coming of the solar angels. And the family of solar angels that comes in will come in according to the triadal indication. In other words, if I am a Buddhic triad, the second ray, the fourth ray, or the sixth ray solar angels will come in. If I'm an Atmic triad, first ray or seventh ray solar angels will come in. So, in other words, the kind of solar angel that is attracted to you to make the bridge will depend upon your triadal structure. At least that's present theory. Okay. Because you exist as a spiritual triad before you exist as a soul on the higher mental plane. Long ago you have been a spiritual triad. Long ago. Before. Well, some of them will just stay the same. And the solar angel Here, this goes back to the question about the monad and the solar angel. The solar angel has to draw forth what the monad wants to express. What the monad wants to express is in the triad, its nature. So the solar angel brought in at the time of individualization has to be in a position to express what the monad intends. And not every type of solar angel will do. It's got to be according to your line. So some of these things, they begin to appear to you when you think about it, because the implications are clear. Yes? Okay. If you change the ray from one life to another, will you change the solar angel? Well, here's the thing. One of the rays of the triad never changes. It stays exactly the same. The other ray will depend on the second column, and the solar angel can handle it. The solar angel can handle its own line. If it's a soft line solar angel, it can handle the 2, 4, or 6. If it's a hard line solar angel, 1, 3, 5, 7 can be handled. Because what does it mean to change soul ray? It's an act of refocusing. That's how DK describes it in Esoteric Psychology 1. You refocus. The consciousness refocuses on a certain ray, and it is within the power of the solar angel to handle that refocusing. Now, this gets into, really interesting ideas here. Does the solar angel per se ever change ray itself? That's a very interesting idea, because after all, they are a hierarchy of beings, and they are on their way up. Now, it leads me to all kinds of speculations here. They have to evolve too. First of all, we just don't know. We don't know what's going on in their hierarchy. It's a higher hierarchy. But if we use the law of analogy, they too would be moving from lower rays to higher rays. So maybe through the man, some of that movement is occurring. When you start out as a 6-ray soul, and a 6-ray family of solar angels is brought in for you, what happens when you change to a 2nd or 3rd ray soul? Does the solar angel hold within itself the capacity to refocus that ray? I just have to leave those as questions we can't answer yet. But the law of analogy leads you into those speculations. There aren't many ray force souls in incarnation at this time. However, well, but there's loads of ray force souls and loads of ray force solar angels incarnating. Exactly. All that means is that the cycle for them to manifest in the 3 lower worlds is not with us, but that doesn't affect the inner numbers. And what those inner numbers are, someone knows. The numbers are controlled. There are only so many solar angels, and they have to be distributed along different ray lines. So there are all these inner families. He uses the word family, which I think is very interesting. And I am assuming that the family means the ray family, but that there should be an equal number of solar angels on each ray. That would be too much of a speculation. I'm sure the numbers exist, and one day we will know them. But we seem to be looking at the idea that the circulation of the streams of force in the petals, the patterns made, reveals the nature of the solar angel and the color. So color and pattern of circulation. Color and pattern of circulation. Okay. The next one By looking at the egoic lotus, the seer can tell the nature of the personal self, okay, the higher self, or solar angel in this case, and beyond that, the triad itself, since the ray of the triad, one of the rays of the triad, is the same as the ray of the solar angel. You can also tell the ray of the monad by looking at the egoic lotus. How interesting. Through the inner circle of petals, its stage of lower awareness is revealed in a similar way. Look, lower awareness. Okay, meaning the monad has also higher awareness. So, monad has lower and higher awareness. Look, I'll tell you what, anything that is aware in you is the monad. That which is aware is the monad, no matter at what level it may be found. When you say, well, as a personality, I'm aware of this. As a soul, I'm aware of this. Behind it all, it's the monad that's aware. Whatever consciousness we have is monadic consciousness at different stages of immersion in matter. It's all the consciousness of the one being, which is the monad. Okay. All right. Now, here's what DK said. The ray of the monad has a particular effect upon the mind. The ray of the soul has a particular effect upon the astral body. The ray of the personality has a particular effect upon the physical body. And here he's saying the same thing from a different perspective. The number of the ray concerned is known through the quality of light of the concealed jewel. Or in other words, the monadic ray is revealed by the color of light in the jewel in the lotus. So, it's all a science, and it's not through guessing that we find out. These are matters of direct observation. But what's very interesting? DK says, well, until you're a third-degree initiate, you cannot know your monadic ray for certain. Maybe he uses the word ascertain. To ascertain means to be certain of what you think you know. Well, what's very interesting? That the jewel is not much revealed until the third initiation is taken. There's a little revelation at each initiation, but by the time the third initiation is taken, there's enough separation of the very inner group of petals to reveal more of the quality of the jewel, which then, as the fourth initiation approaches, is more and more revealed until there is that destruction of the totally revealed jewel. So it seems to me that there is concealment of the quality of light for quite a while until the higher initiations are reached, and then each one of us is burning with a particular color and quality of light in the middle of our jewel, and that's what reveals the monadic ray. Now, I think it's a mixture of colors, because like I've said before, I think there are two monadic rays, just like there are two soul rays. And the reason I say that is because if you study the map here on page 344, you will see when looking at the higher levels of our cosmic physical plane that on the monadic plane there are 7 centers, not 3. But on the logoic plane there are 3 centers, not 7. And we're told the monadic ray can only be 1, 2, or 3. Yes, the major, inner, final monadic ray can be 1, 2, or 3. But in the monadic stanzas that he gives us, there's always 7 stanzas. So I think that the 7 correlates with the kind of rays that express through this 7-fold nature here. The final 3, I believe, refer to the logoic 3, which gives us our final monadic ray. In other words, monadically speaking, we can be any one of 7 rays. But if we want to reduce that to its final term, we will find either 1, 2, or 3. All of us. Now, I think that the jewel in the lotus, my impression, reveals both colors. The color of one of the 7 and the color of one of the 3. How it does this, I don't know. But it will be nice to see someday when we're in a position to use the information constructively. I'm sure, look, when DK pulls his students together, he takes a good long look at who they are, and he sees, by examining the egoic lotus, who they really are. What are their rays? What's their level of unfoldment? Even he knows their monadic rays, too. Every once in a while, he reveals it when he thinks it could do a little good. What he does mostly is vaguely hint at the monadic ray. Vaguely. So unless you are really awake, you don't know he's doing it. Sometimes he actually gives it to you. Your monadic ray is blank. He's done that in 2 or 3 different times. It's exactly this. Mostly he's hinting. All right, moving on. Yes. Yes. The second color, the indigo color, everything is indigo. Indigo red, indigo green, as he says. So yes, in a deeper sense, whatever the ray of our planet is, that is substantial, and certainly whatever the ray of our solar system is, underlies everything. So these different layers of color, which we all have to factor in. And what we need to do is so develop ourselves that the normal obstructions in the lunar worlds do not prevent us from seeing things exactly as they are. Now, this should be a big incentive to try to do whatever we can to purify our inner vision so we can see as the seers see. Because it's not going to just happen. I mean, eventually it'll happen because the whole human race will, after millions and millions of years, be lifted to the point of vision. But if you don't want to wait millions and millions of years, but if a few thousand years is your objective, it's going to take a lot of work. But I trust that by reading these things, we will have the incentive to undertake that kind of work, because the reward is so tremendous. The reward in truth and light and knowledge and certainty about what's going on. Know what I mean? Excuse me. In all these petals, groups of lives, solar and otherwise, are concerned, and streams of, in all these petals, groups of lives, solar and otherwise, are concerned, yes. And streams of energy from them focus through the petals. So let's just say from above also. This is apparent to the man who has the key. Now, there's one of these techniques of integration, or what are they called? The sort of, you'll recognize it. the key here is, I'll show you. Well, come on. Are you going to let me do this or not? There's one of these ray types that says, give me the key. Give me the key. And it is the law of repulse for ray 5. Through the opening on the summit of the pyramid, dropped from the blue of heaven, a key came down. At last, a key. Okay, at last, a key. So let's see. A key came down. It landed at the feet of the discouraged worker. The key was of pure gold, the shaft of light. Upon the key a label, and writ in blue these words: destroy that which thou hast built. I'd like to make sure that they do the right English there. Destroy thou that which thou hast built, and build anew, but only build when thou hast climbed the upward way, traversed the gallery of tribulation, and entered into light within the chamber of the king. Build from the heights, and thus shew forth the value of the depths. So the fifth ray type has the key. And we need the fifth ray approach in order to see clearly enough to get the key. Okay. That was esoteric psychology under the law of repulse for the fifth ray, page 169. Okay, and they are so brilliant, you know. Anyway, we need the key. It is a curious fact that the streams of force which form the petals and which are in constant flux, look at this, produce key symbols within the periphery of the egoic wheel, and thus reveal themselves through their activity. So, for every ray, there is a key symbol. In other words, sometimes you see those Hindu drawings, and in the petals of different chakras you see a Hindu letter, a Sanskrit letter. Maybe this is not just the imagination of an author somewhere. Maybe this is what happens. Sometimes the people who study the Hebrew alphabet quite clearly seem to think that these are signatures of nature, not a man-made alphabet, but actual forms that are appearing when divine energies do their work. Excuse me. Okay. So anyway, maybe the master, looking at the egoic lotus, sees the key symbols, the color and the key symbols, based upon the circulation of energy. In other words, the key symbols appear through circulation of energy. Things move and draw a symbol. Above the head of the new group of world servers is seen the sign of the Savior. Same thing. God is writing in a certain language, and these symbols appear to reveal what is said. Okay. If my editor is listening, he knows what he has to cut out. Okay. Did you say? Just my face. Yeah. All right, we have two types of energies so far we've discussed. One is from the atomic triangle, and the other comes from the second tier of petals. Okay. Look, here we are studying the dynamics of something we cannot see. At least we cannot see it the way the Tibetan sees it. An occasional glimpse is not the real sight. But he's thinking in terms of centuries. He's not thinking of a few decades. He's thinking of what we need to know in order to interpret what we will see. Sometimes I think it's better to study the map of a country before going there. Then you'll know where you are, what you're looking at. A third type of energy is that which, at the close of evolution, makes itself felt through the inner petals, and which is the result of the inflow of monadic force, or Atma. Why does he call monadic force Atma? Because clearly the monad is more than Atma, isn't it? Right? If this is Atma, and this is the monad, why does he call this by the name Atma? It's a question. But perhaps it is that the monad is the will, is most closely identified with the will of God. It is of the three periodic vehicles, it is the will aspect rather than the love or the intelligence aspect. And so Atma is that triadal aspect which is closest in relation to the nature of the monad. And it is how monadic will expresses in the five worlds that we can relate to somewhat. So it's truly not Atma, but the inflow of monadic force is Atma. Okay. So there is a third type of energy, and it comes at the close of evolution. The last few lives only. You've had thousands of lives, and in the last few, maybe 3, 4, 5 at the most, monadic force begins to flow in, and not before. So certainly it is the close of individual evolution. Okay. And it makes itself felt and expressed through Atma. Finally, therefore, when the petals are unfolded, they are transmitters of life from 3 sources. The lower self, or lunar Petri, is connected with the knowledge petals. The ego, or solar angel, with the love petals. The monad, or Father in heaven, with the sacrifice petals. So by studying each circle of petals, you can tell something about one of the 3 divisions of the human being. And you can tell with accuracy where they stand. Now, the sacrifice petals are the only ones that are ever touched by the rod of initiation. Think about that. They are the only ones that are deliberately hastened by the application of the rod of initiation. So what does this tell us? You have two initiators. Who are the two initiators? Christ is one. That one, you know, the father, yeah. Sanat Kumara is the other. Oh, him. And they operate upon that tier of petals which is related to the monad. So in a way, initiation is all about the will, isn't it? Monad, initiator, sacrifice petals, will. So initiation is not taken by anyone in whom the will is not developing. Yes. Well, I think you can. I do not think that that a chart tells you which petals you are working on for the following reason. There are thousands of lives, and people are at all different stages in the unfoldment of the egoic lotus, and if you don't know that, a particular chart can point in many different directions. But if you know the approximate circle on which a person is working, let's say you know the circle, and you know the cutting edge petal that they are working on, then the chart can be very useful in pointing to the way that that kind of work can occur. You understand what I mean? You know, a person who is, 80% of the people, 85% of the people on our planet are emotionally polarized. They're all emotionally polarized for millions of years. And they get all kinds of charts. But within that range, the chart can point out certain types of unfoldment which could occur. Now, suppose people of our type are working on the sacrifice petals in general. Initiation 1, 2, and 3. The chart can point out within that general range of activities the kinds of things that could be developed in a particular incarnation. I think it's how astrology fits into the unfoldment of the egoic lotus, I think, is very important subject, but not as simple as it might seem. Now, I would think that people of our kind should be working on the 7th and 8th petal of the egoic lotus. In other words, what this does to work on the 7th and 8th petal is it allows you to use all of your abilities in service, and it allows you to really master the art of sacrifice. So it prepares either for the first or second initiation. But there are all kinds of ways of preparing for those initiations, and each chart adds a little piece in the preparation. For instance, if you know you're in the general curriculum for preparing for the second initiation, what can your chart add to that process? It will take many charts to prepare the pathway to the initiation which you are struggling towards, not just one. Anyway, that's my take on it. And there are also many ways to approach an initiation. You can take some of these initiations not just in one sign. There are a number of signs in which you can take an initiation. Let's look at the third initiation. I'm trying to think if there's, what are the prominent signs in which you can take the third initiation? Aries, Leo, Scorpio, Capricorn, Aquarius. I'm not saying that you can't take that initiation in other signs or under other signs, but all of those are mentioned as signs in which you can take the third initiation. So there are these different avenues towards the taking of an initiation. And then remember, your planets continue to progress. So when they enter a new sign, they may provide opportunities which were not immediately there in the birth horoscope. So it's a kind of a complex subject. You have to know, like he says all the time, where does the person stand on the path of evolution, and then you can do something with the chart. The chart itself will not tell where the person stands on the path. But even to confirm that statement, a lot of research will have to be done. Okay. So where were we here? Finally, therefore, when the petals are unfolded, they are therefore transmitters of life or energy from three sources. The petals transmit they receive from below, from within, and from above, which I think is very interesting. Below, within, horizontal, and above. And what this really means, all of us, if we are initiates of the first degree, even that, have had contact with the monad. With the monad. The monad has not operated in such a way that it can necessarily be registered in the brain consciousness, but it has touched the soul. And the initiation is taken in the causal body. So anytime your sacrifice petals are opening up, the monad is involved in this. The sacrifice petals with the monad, the love petals the ego, and the outer petals the personality. If we could just get that in our mind. Now obviously, we have knowledge of the world for a long time. We have adapted ourselves socially to getting along with our fellow human beings for a long time. Now the strictly spiritual phase of development is upon us. It is monadic, it is hierarchical, it is initiatory. It has to do with reception from the very highest source. It is filled with sacrifice. What's the very first law of the soul? Law of sacrifice. So unless sacrifice is really a big part of our lives, there will be no advancement in any straight, rapid, direct manner. There will be advancement, of course. But if you want to take matters into your own hands, then sacrifice is the key to the progress. Law of sacrifice, first law. The lower self. To make sacred, to sacrifice, to give over to a higher purpose, to put the essential first. Sacrifice can oftentimes be seen as putting first things first and second things second. As simple as that. So many of us, we have our preferences. And even though it may not be a first thing, it's a preference. And we give our time and our energy to that preference. So, but it's up to us, each one of us, to determine what that is. Nobody can say like that. You have to know yourself. And every time, I often think about it, I'm a little chagrined, I say I've chosen second things many times because they appeal to me, It then becomes possible after this for a still higher form of energy to be felt in the egoic lotus. That which is the energy of the center of the body of the heavenly man, or planetary logos, which uses the jewel in the lotus as its focal point. How interesting. So, interesting. As monads, we are all members of one or other planetary center, either 7 or 3. So this center can work through the jewel in the lotus and can affect the petals of the egoic lotus. So, however, I think, mostly this is triadal and later, I think. In this summation, we have dealt with the main types of energy manifesting in the egoic or causal body. Certain other influences must likewise be considered in connection with the outer tier of petals. That's how we started, with the outer tier of petals. E. There is the energy reaching directly to the knowledge petals. Here we go. We saw it on the map. From the monastic permanent atom. Here it is. Here's the monastic permanent atom. And here are the 3 green lines, each one of them touching one of the outer petals. So he's given us a number of places where they come from. Now the monastic permanent atom. The permanent atoms of the spiritual triad, as well as the bodies which are built around them, and by the way, those bodies don't occur immediately, bring in certain groups of deva lives which have not as yet been much considered. So what is he talking about here? He's talking about the effect of the spiritual triad upon our egoic lotus. Not just the atomic triangle, not just how one circle of petals affects another, because they do, of course. Do you have a love petal in your knowledge tier? Yes. Do you have a sacrifice petal in your knowledge tier? You do. So therefore, the love of the central petals will definitely be resonant with one petal in the outer circle and one petal in the sacrifice circle. Really, you have 5 love petals, 5 knowledge petals, and 5 sacrifice petals, don't you? In other words, here's 3 sacrifice petals, but you've got sacrifice, you've got love sacrifice and knowledge sacrifice, you've got 5. So even though there are 9 petals, you really have 15 in a way. Some are overlapped, right? Look, you know, what we're talking about right now is the same thing as talking about the structure of our personality. Only it is for people who have discounted the personality as their main center of identity. You are in the process of switching your conception of who you think you are. Now you're looking at your egoic lotus and saying, that's my real identity. I am a point of consciousness within the egoic lotus, just like presently I say, well, here I am in my body, emotions, and mind. That's true too. But it is more true that you are a point of consciousness within the egoic lotus. And this is for people who are outgrowing the personality as their center of identity focus. Now, obviously, it's a long, painful process, and we don't outgrow it in one life. You know, we have to change our sense of values. But already, we should begin to think of ourselves as egoic lotuses and not as bodies walking around in the 3 worlds. Know what I mean? So anyway, from the permanent atoms of the spiritual triad, which are the major permanent atoms, and from the bodies that are built around them, whenever they are built, later in the day really, certain groups of Deva lives come in. They are not the lunar Petries, as that term is commonly understood. Whoa. But have a direct connection with what is called the cosmic moon. The cosmic moon. Or to that dying solar system, which has the same relation to our system as the moon has to the earth chain. Not the earth scheme so much as the earth chain. And that's very interesting. In other words, the moon has a backward drag upon the earth chain and all life within it. There is a solar system called a cosmic moon, which has a backward drag on our entire solar system. In other words, what he's saying is the dying solar system, the previous solar system is still with us, just like the moon is with us. Even though it's dead, it has all the bad effects as a body lying around decomposing, which is usually considered, I don't want anything to do with that. Well, this is the same situation. This cosmic moon transmits its energy to the monastic atomic subplane via the planet Saturn. Whoa. Cosmic moon, Saturn, monastic permanent atom, monastic atomic subplane. Here you go. Here's the monastic atomic subplane, and the monastic permanent atom is found on it. So Saturn is really representing the old system. And wherever we have Saturn in our chart, it represents things we have not dealt with yet that are still hanging over from the past, thus karma. But these are the deeper occult things behind that idea. Okay. It is a triple energy, 3 rings. Oh yeah. And there is an esoteric connection between this triple energy and Saturn's rings. Now when they start to look closer at the rings, the structure is more complicated, and other planets have rings too. I think Uranus has some rings also. I haven't studied that, but I remember hearing about that. Anyway, there are Deva lives up here in this part of our system, and the ones that are focused around the monastic permanent atom come from the old solar system, the previous one. See, we people on our planet and in our solar system, we're having trouble outliving our past. Our past is hanging on, and it's veiling what we should be doing in the present. So right now, we have to learn to get rid of our past and transmute it so we can go ahead with our projects in the present solar system. Okay. I'm aware of the time. Yes. Well, you know, it's a good question. Are those devas those taking care of karma? Because we know they're connected with Saturn. Saturn is the lord of karma. And the whole egoic lotus, from which the solar angel administrates much of our karma, is built upon the monastic permanent atom. So in a way, they hold the secret of the past and things that are not yet done. So maybe they are karmic officials in some way. You know, I'd hate to have just a third-ray bookkeeper without a fifth ray and a seventh ray thrown in. But I'm sure that They say that in the Department of Karma they keep meticulous records on everybody, everything. So yes, the cosmic bookkeepers, yes, yes. Hopefully, because he does make that funny comment about the third ray not bothering to keep his book straight. He says he can't be bothered with that stuff. I remember when I went to college, which my dad paid for. He was Capricorn, Saturn, very, very grateful. But I really didn't have a concept of what a checkbook meant. So I just kind of wrote checks, And only later, when I got home, was there an accounting for what I had written. How can you possibly be overdrawn? Well, I was buying records and music. What do you mean? But that I ran into Saturn in that way, because I was operating on the fourth ray and he was being Saturn, Capricorn. There's always an accounting, that's for sure. Every time I've ever had anything to do with the tax department of my country, Saturn has been prominent in my chart. Has that ever happened to you? I don't know. I've had Saturn on the ascendant, Saturn on the moon in the 8th house, all the time Saturn making you accountable for what you write or don't write. Yes, that's right. Uranus wants to do away with the income tax system. We have a whole Uranian movement in our country about how income tax is really illegal. These are coming from people they call libertarians, which means I want to be free regardless of what society is or says. Do you say? Tea Party, yes, the Tea Party. Well, what is interesting about the Tea Party is that the horoscope of the United States has many factors in common now with when the American Revolution occurred. So we're in for another revolution. Not everything is the same, of course, but those big cycles do tend to repeat themselves. Well, I think it's a question of Uranus having entered Aries now, which is providing an unusual first-ray impulse. As a matter of fact, the greatest amount of first-ray that you can find is coming from the hierarchical first-ray ruler of Uranus in first-ray Aries. So the emphasis is very much towards that particular Lord of Liberation, which is interested in freedom, particularly. But Saturn, as you know, is opposing in Libra, which in a way is protecting the status quo. So you have a very interesting dynamic between this huge liberation movement and those forces that want to keep things pretty much as they have been. And yes, exactly. And there's many reactionary forces waiting in the wings, if you know what I mean. In other words, sometimes the forces of liberation seem to be clearing the decks, only to have the reactionary forces move in. Yeah. Well, yeah, that's true. The only thing that's encouraging about it is that if we can hold our breath for the next 100 years, it will all work out. And actually, Uranus will stay in Aries for quite a while. So this liberative movement will be there long after Saturn has ceased to oppose, but Saturn in Scorpio is not so easy either, because it forces facing of many Hydra-like qualities. which is good in a certain sense. I mean, really, hold on to your hats for the next 14 years. This is the time that has been looked for a long time, and there will be a reckoning, I do believe, in this adjustment between the sixth ray and the coming seventh ray culture. It's like a human being in whom the chakras are somewhat at war. There obviously has to be some sort of harmonious balance and right placement and right function in these chakras, but what you sometimes have is lower chakras seeking to usurp the place of higher chakras that are already in development. And indeed, it can happen. They can be temporarily overwhelmed. Now, the other malfunction, you could call it colonialism or, other forms of impression and suppression, is that the powers of the higher chakras seek to negate lower chakric function and suppress it. And therefore, it doesn't do its proper function. It's simply held. So now, the fourth ray, from its monadic aspect, which is a tantalizing hint, is coming in 1925, roughly. And it's been active since 1924, after 1924. In other words, when the new group of world service was formed in 1925, approximately, and the ashrams began to move to the fourth plane, the Buddhic plane, the fourth ray was powerful for creating relationships between previously unrelated factors. So in one way, we have been in a mysterious fourth ray cycle, which he only hinted at in one place. But yet, the effect is with us. The new group of world servers, a fourth ray group, the interpenetration of the ashrams, and all of the movements towards peace. It's been with us. But now the fourth ray comes in its monadic aspect, and I think that the imbalanced chakra situation in humanity, imbalance of races, sub-races, continents, nations, all that, will be now addressed. And it will be addressed with the presence of a lot of seventh ray types who know something about how to organize it all. So, and Libra will be becoming powerful in the planetary horoscope. It already is. So he says there's no need for real anxiety. Well, how about unreal anxiety? But anyway, no need for real anxiety, he says. I would just say that the immediate short term is our difficult passage. I think after 2025, I believe it will be a little smoother because the hierarchy will meet in conclave, the fourth ray will be coming in, the plans for the reappearance and the externalization will be tangibly laid down, which they haven't been yet, because hierarchy has to stand back and assess what we've done. That assessment will come in 2025. Yeah, yes. Well, I'm sure that many of us will experience the opportunity for a new life in the short term. Yes. Yeah. Bridging energy, yes. Yes. Yes, the triple victory of the fourth ray. One side and the other side and the one in the center. So there is a wonderful thing said about the fourth ray, and we just had a fourth ray conference, So so I quoted this, and when the disciple and the inner master, the soldier and the warrior, are known to be at one, then there takes place what has been called in some of the ancient books the breaking forth of the light of victory. This is the kind of victory we hope we can expect. A victory which does not inflict defeat upon those who are at war, but which results in that triple victory of the two sides and of the one who is at the center. All three move forward to perfection. This is typical of a ray for consummation, and if this thought is applied with due reflection to the problem of the fourth kingdom in nature, the fourth grade of hierarchy, humanity itself, the beauty of the phrasing and the truth of this statement must inevitably appear. So this is what we hope for. Not, because what happens if you inflict, if one set of chakras inflicts defeat upon another? Defeat, all are necessary. The function of all are necessary, but it is proportional function. And that's what we have all wrong at the moment. We are out of proportion. So with the coming in of Libra, which is the sign of proportion, maybe this triple victory can break forth and things can function in their rightful place and with rightful intensity of energy, not having the past overwhelm the present and the possible future. And that's what we're in danger of right now, what DK calls the reinitiation into the earth. And he talks about that in Taurus. So it is possible that a dark age of materialism lasting maybe 3,000 years could occur. So this is what we have to see our way through. Yes. The cook is waiting. Taurus, materialism, the cook. All right. The cook is waiting. I think we have to adjourn, and then we will pick this up, continue in this section after lunch, and we will come back at 1 hour and 15 minutes at 2 o'clock, which is 12 o'clock GMT, you webinarians, and you can go. You can leave. Out!